Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me today. Catherine, thanks for the introduction. I'm super excited to be here so that I can talk about what we do at Headset, and in particular, how we're using Looker today to monetize both data and analytics. So to get started, let's go through a bit of an agenda. The first thing I want to do is explain to you who Headset is, what we do, why we exist, who our customers are, so that you can have a better understanding of the place I'm coming from when I tell you some of the solutions I built. The next thing I want to talk about is first how we grew our product. We are a data analytics company. We are analytics as a service. And so what I want to talk about is kind of the historical way we thought about growing our product. And then I want to move into how we're growing our product in the future. In particular, some of the things we're trying to do other than the very traditional just adding new data sources or adding new dashboards, but changing the way that people are able to interact with our data and the way that we're able to serve people of all different types of data literacy. And then when I get all done, we'll have a Q&A, which Catherine will lead. She will do the Qing and I will do the Aing. So to get started, I'm Liz Connors. I'm the VP of Data and Analytics at Headset. Headset is a cannabis data intelligence company. That's a lot of words, but really what we do is we create data products for people in the cannabis space. So across the US and Canada today, nearly every province in Canada and nearly every state in the US has some form of legal cannabis, whether it's medical and really restricted, all the way up to very open free market adult use states. I happen to live in one of those. I live in Washington, where we can pretty freely buy cannabis at any of our 450 different cannabis retailers. So what Headset does is we work with brands, producers, manufacturers, and retailers in this space to provide them with data analytics tools. We have a couple of different products, which I'll walk you through. But at the end of the day, we don't actually buy or sell any cannabis. What we do is we help companies either use their own data, so kind of a BYO data situation, so they can bring their data to us and we offer them analytics tools. And the flip side, what we do is we actually create some data ourselves, and then we build the analytics tools that go on top of that. And so those are kind of the two major things that we do at Headset. I'll also say in my free time, just so that you can get to know me, in my free time, I do a lot of research into the different types of things that allow people to use data to make decisions. There are all sorts of reasons why we do and don't use data as people. And so in cognitive psychology, there's a lot of literature on heuristics and biases that people have and how that interacts with their ability to accept data and use data for decision making. So I do a lot of research in that area. In fact, I do experimental research, so I'm always looking for people to experiment on to see how data impacts their ability to make decisions. And we use a lot of that as we think about the products we build at Headset. So to get started, what I would like to do is tell you about the three products that Headset offers. And really, I'm just going to focus on those two there on the left. So the first one I'll talk about is our easiest one to understand. We have a product called Retailer. Retailer is so named because it applies to retailers. So retailers come to Headset with their point of sale data. So we connect into their point of sale data. This is the data every single time when you go in and purchase something, a record gets created. So this is very typical retail data. We connect into their retail data and we make analytics tools for them to better run their stores. This is all BYO data. So the retailers come to us with their own data and we build ways to help them analyze it. Another thing we do there on the right is called Bridge. Bridge is so aptly named because it bridges the connection between the retailer and the vendor. So what we do there is for retailers that have connected to us and decide to opt in, we've built tools so that the brands that they work with can have access to that retail data. So if you think about it, we'll use a CPG example because that's easy for everybody. Imagine you go into your local grocery store and you try to buy some Tide detergent. Probably what the makers of Tide want to know is, are you out of any of those products? Did the retailer run out? Are they running low? Should they send some orders? How are those products moving? Are they selling well? Do we have to discount those products a lot? Those would all be questions as the manager of Tide that you would want to know, but you can only answer those if you have access to that retailer data. So what we did is we built an application for those brands to go in to the retailer data, as long as the retailer's opted in and allows them. and actually do some analytics about how well their products are moving, how quickly are their products selling, are there things that are out of stock or are limited stock, are there things that aren't selling as fast as they should. And then as part of that, we help with reordering capabilities. So we do some predictions to say, I think that this product will run out in 6 days, so you should probably send an order of 40 vapor pens to this store before then. That's our Bridge product. And then lastly is our Insights product. Insights is a little bit different. So in both Retailer and Bridge, we're using that retailer direct data. But in Insights, what we do is we actually take all of the retailer data that we're connected to. So today, that's about 2,000 retailers across the United States and Canada. And we anonymize that data. We take all the hallmarks of the retailer off, and we create market level insights. So here we have data insights, so we can say things like, in the state of California, cannabis sales are, $400 million last month. The average price is about $60 per ounce. Or, geez, that'd be cheap. That's probably the price of a quarter. We can say what brands are selling well, even what products are selling well. So you can know things like gummies are about 6 times the size of chocolates in terms of market, and that which brand is winning the gummy market in each area. So in that case, what we do is we actually create the data and then we build the tool on top. So how Headset got started was really with that middle product, that retailer product. And like I said, we're connected to about 2,000 stores today. There are over 10,000 cannabis dispensaries across the US and Canada, and most of them are still very mom and pop. Even the largest cannabis retail chains out there will have less than 100 stores. And when you think about what all these mom and pop operators and even the big operators need, they all really have some of the same questions, right? I put up an overview dashboard that we built, but every single operator needs to know this, right? They need to know their revenue. They need to know how many transactions they had. They need to be able to compare sales over time. And so what Headset did was built this analytics platform that retailers can just connect to their point of sale data and have what we hope are most of the analytics that they need to better run their business. I was personally drawn to Headset because of how efficient this is. I used to consult with smaller businesses and help them understand their data, but I had to build one individual set of dashboards for each client, right? Well, at Headset, what we did is we used those point of sale connections, we normalized all the data, and then we used Looker as embedded analytics so that we can answer all these questions just one time. I only had to build the dashboard one time, and now all 2,000 retailers have access to their own individualized data. So the first thing we built was really simple. It was free, like all startups. The first thing you do is always free. And we built some stuff that tracked daily sales, that report that you just saw. We had a reorder alerts. So we said, hey, you're running low, or these are selling faster than anticipated. We had some seasonal planning, and we had some marketing analysis. So if they're running promotions, how well did those do? This was our first product, and it did very well. But like I said, we're a startup, so we have to grow, and we have to grow pretty quick. So when we sat down and thought about it, we thought there are probably 4 ways that we could grow our data product. The first one was to find new users that need the same problem solved. So that would just be, sorry about that. That would just be getting new retailers. Remember I said we're connected to about 2,000 of them. So this would just be getting, and there are probably 10,000 in total. This would just be getting more of those people that aren't connected. The next one would be to solve a new problem for our current users. So I showed you those 4 little things we were solving. Those aren't all the problems a retailer has, so we could grow the problems that we can answer. Next, we could solve a new problem for new users. So I could go out and maybe build these same dashboards for people that run hair salons or CrossFit gyms. And then finally, I could solve the same problem, but better than before. So maybe that means faster, maybe that means more completely, maybe that means in an easier to use format, but we could solve the same questions we were solving, just better. So the first thing we did is really, well, obviously we did number 1, we're always trying to find new clients. But the next thing we did was try to solve some new problems. So we developed an advanced offering, making our product freemium. So we had our free retail product, and then we added in these 6 modules here. The way that we use Looker and the way that we build our retailer platform is all of our analytics are modularized. Difficult to say, but very good for analytics. And what it does is we bundle together suites of dashboards or suites of reports that really all answer one particular question. So our goal is for you to go into our product and say, hey, today I'm going to be doing some marketing analysis. And when you get there, it asks you questions like, are you trying to understand your promotions? Are you trying to understand your pricing? Are you trying to understand how your vendor days are doing? So we've built each one into these individual functions. So the first thing we did was this advanced offering, right? We offered more ways to analyze your data. So the same data was coming in, the same customers were connected to us. But now what we did is we took each of these modules and sold them individually. So you can buy an inventory analysis module if you like, which answers inventory and demand planning questions. Or you could buy a bud tender analysis module. For people that aren't familiar with cannabis, bud tenders are what you call the people that work behind the register, so like the sales staff. And sales staff at a cannabis store operate a little bit differently than a regular retail store. They're usually there in more of like an advisory or even a sales role. Sometimes they even have pharmacy degrees because they're dispensing the medical cannabis in those states. So we offered these new modules, which was great. These did really well. I'm very proud of them. But next, what we needed to do was find another way to grow. And we sat down and thought about it. And what me and our product team thought about was what Headset does is we collect the data. So we go actually to those point of sale systems. We connect with like 37 point of sale systems today. If you can imagine, those 37 point of sale systems all have data that looks very different. So we clean it up so that every point of sale system has similar looking tables. And then we visualize it, right? So we build dashboards. We build those analytics models we talk about. But the interpretation of the data was left to the end user. So we have a lot of dashboards in front of you, but looking at the data and deciding what does it mean? What do I do next? Should I be happy about this data or sad about this data? Should I be worried or should I be popping champagne? Those were things that you had to decide on your own little laptop there. That wasn't something we were doing for people. And to take that a step further, what we started to think about was our customers. So like I said, we have over 2,000 retailers that use our tool. I think the average retailer has 2 or 3 users. So I've got about 4,000 different people that use these data tools that we build. But anytime you get that large of a group of people, you've got a distribution, right? And as a career statistician, a career data scientist, anytime I hear distribution, I get really excited. Distributions are my favorite because what they let you do is understand the group of people. So we talked with our customers and we decided that we wanted to understand the distribution of our customers across two different measures. The first one was data literacy, and the next one was the time that they could devote to analysis. So if you think about all the people out there that use dashboards, whether they're your dashboards at your company or people that you're selling to, they're going to have all different levels of ability to understand and interpret data. They're also going to have all different amounts of time they can dedicate to data. Sometimes that's because you're busy and you don't have a lot of time. Sometimes that's because, and I hate to say these people exist, but some people just don't like analyzing data. Which actually are quite good for us as data analysts, right? Those people that don't like analyzing data will pay us to analyze it for them. So those are great people to have. They pay our mortgage. So what we wanted to do is think about our users across this scale. And what I decided was there were 4 quadrants. Anytime I have a scatter chart, I love to do 4 quadrants as long as the data looks like it can handle that. And that was kind of what our data looked like. So I broke it down into 4 quadrants. And when you think about, let's go back a little. When you think about dashboards themselves, the dashboards that we were providing, I kind of think that they lived here, right, in the cross section, right? We're trying to get them to apply to everybody. They're sort of, they're like the, oh gosh, what's a good analogy? They're like the Corona, the Corona beer, not coronavirus, the Corona of beers, right? Everybody likes Corona. It's not an IPA, it's not a cheap beer, it's not a fancy beer, it's just a Corona. So kind of this nice like mass market appeal. But then we kind of thought about these people, and what we thought is, if you go up there to the quadrant on the far upper right, we have people with high data literacy and high time devoted to analytics. These are usually people that can run their own distributed database systems. These might be people that say words like SQL and Jupyter Notebook in their daily lives. These people are very data literate and they have a lot of time to do analysis. They might be statisticians or data scientists, maybe even data engineers. And they're probably people that like data. If they've decided that they have that much time to devote to analysis, probably data is something that is enjoyable for them. Down there in the second quadrant on the bottom right, these people are your Excel power users. I think everybody has some Excel power users out there. So they have high data literacy. They might not have a lot of time to be devoting to their analysis. So they probably built their one macro-enabled Excel notebook years ago, and they're still kind of running on that same thing. These are people that are really into data, but they maybe either don't have the time or perhaps even the more advanced skill set to be taking the data and doing like databasing or BI development with it. This could also be reports, right? Maybe they're writing some ad hoc reports with their data, but they're not really taking the time to develop these things as repeatable and scalable analyses for an org. Next, down there at the bottom left, we have people with low data literacy and low time to do analysis. These are probably executives. These are people that want like that one pager. I'm sure you've heard one pager, or they want that list of KPIs. They don't have a ton of time to be doing analysis. For these people, dashboards tend to be a good fit. However, what they might not be able to do is actually interpret that data. And then finally, we have that upper left-hand quadrant there. These are people with a lot of time for analysis, but maybe they don't have a lot of data literacy yet. I kind of put these, classify these people as students. They might not actually be in school, but they are learning the trade of data analysis. I think most people that find themselves in that upper left corner, where they have the time and they want to be involved in analysis, are probably trying to move themselves into those first and second quadrants rather than down into that third. So what I really want to talk about is that third quadrant, these people that don't have a lot of time for data analysis, and they also don't have high data literacy. These are generally the people that you can give a dashboard to, and they look at it, and they look back up at you, and they say, so what do I do? And that was super common for us. We had a lot of people saying, you know, these are all great, they're very interesting, but I just want a few things that tell me what to do. And so what we did is we built some automated reporting using Looker. So this is a visualization that we still have in our data, but it used to just be this visualization. This was on a dashboard, and what we were trying to do here was tell people about the affinity of various brands among different demographic groups. So the question we were trying to answer here is, for the brand in question, what demographic groups have an affinity for this brand? What demographic groups prefer this brand? So I'll give you guys all a minute to interpret this data, but it's going to take you a second, right? You have to first, you know, read the legend there. So you have to see that the lighter blue bar is the percent of the brand's total sales. And then that darker blue, that's the percent of the category's total sales. And then you can see that kind of teal dot gives us an index. And then you kind of have to understand, well, what was Liz trying to do here when she made this chart? How was she defining demographic affinity? And so the next thing you would need to either figure out or interpret is what I meant. And so what I meant in this case was that when a particular demographic group contributes a larger amount of sales to that brand, that demographic group probably prefers that brand over an average brand in that category. So I have a little timer on. I think that took me about 60 seconds to tell you. So we're not even done, right? We just now have taken the time to understand what the chart is doing. Now we need to interpret it. So probably the first thing we would interpret are these these three sets of bars that I've highlighted. And what you'll notice here is that these millennial groups and this Gen X males, these tend to under-index. I'm sorry. These tend to, this is why you need things to interpret for you. These tend to index to, like the Generation X male, this tends to index more to the brand in question and less to the category. So these Gen X males, they prefer this brand. So there I call them out. Here we have two other groups that also prefer this brand. So we see those millennial males, right? Here the brand is deriving a larger percent of their sales than an average brand in that category. And the same is true of that Generation Z males. And what you'll see as I talked through there very easily, now that we started interpreting it, and I put these call outs on the graph, is that males really prefer this brand. It's less about the actual age of the consumer and more that no matter the age of the consumer, this is a male-leaning brand. This makes sense when you look at the branding and what this group is offering. But then there's one other thing that's a little worth pointing out, and that's over here, these baby boomer females. You can see that they definitely don't prefer this brand. So baby boomer females make up like 3% of this brand's sales, whereas we're looking at edibles here. A baby boomer female will generally be about 12% of the edibles category, but they're only 3% of this brand sales, and that's because this does not index to females. This is a brand that markets itself as just like, it's really for getting stoned. And so generally baby boomer females are looking for something a bit more mild than this product. But so all that took me now, I think we're 2.5 minutes in of me trying to explain this graph to you. And that's a lot of work if you either don't have 2.5 minutes, which doesn't sound like a lot of time, but for some people it's a big amount of time. Or you just don't want to spend 2.5 minutes on data analysis, right? And so what we built is these dynamic texts that go through and actually analyze the data. So the first part that's not highlighted is actually doing all of the explaining that I did at first. What is the data? What does it mean? How do I interpret it? And then the next part in bold actually goes through and using some of the liquid text, or some of the like liquid abilities in Looker, and kind of creating some interesting ways to use measures. What we were able to do was actually interpret the data. So this part in bold here, what happens in the actual LookML is we go through and we look to see, well, for this particular brand that I've chosen, what's true? Who does the over-indexing? Who does the under-indexing? This is actually only like 2 sentences of maybe 10. I just couldn't get them all on the chart. And really this report has, maybe 6 or 7 charts on it that get interpreted this way. But the goal here was for the people that were over in that bottom left-hand quadrant, those people that don't have high data literacy or don't want to spend time interpreting data, they can sit down and actually read something. My goal was to slightly automate me. I tried to leave out my jokes. I usually tell a lot of jokes, so that's where the actual appeal of having a human do it maybe is, but not everybody has time or money to pay for a human to do it. And also some people just don't like my jokes. And so what this does is it provides something that's a little more scalable for people to go through. And like this one report, when we were writing it, it would take us maybe 3 or 4 hours per brand. And after we coded this whole thing, now we have it available for like 1,500 brands. It was a really big deal for us because these reports sell for a couple $1,000s each. And what we were able to do is take all of that staff time out, and now they take about 90 seconds to complete each time, provided we don't find any bugs in our code. And then just kind of to help you see what we did, this is the code that wrote that one sentence that you're looking at, or rather that one paragraph, I suppose. So what we do is we go through and we use some of the like different SQL functions in LookML to actually compare and contrast data, and it pulls different language out. And so this is the actual like functional way that we created some of the measures, not all of them, but actually did some of the writing. It looks like a lot. It really didn't take very long, especially given the fact that we wanted to be able to create this for like 1,500 people. It was really worth our time, and not something I think that I probably could have done very easily just writing SQL or using R. I think that some of the functionality of Looker, especially with the dynamic querying, makes this, a lot easier than I think it would have been somewhere else, which is great because the easier it is, the cheaper it is for me to make. As a startup, my goal is always to make money. So that pretty much concludes what I was trying to do today. So the takeaways I hope for you are that as you look to grow your product, if you're building a data product, especially if you're a third-party analytics company, some of your goals will be first to find new users for what you already have. If you're on the dev team, that's the easiest, right? Because you don't actually have to build anything new. Next, you can build new products for your current customers. And that's great because you already have those customers there. You can ask them what they're looking for. You can ask them for their problems so that you can find ways to solve them. You can build new products for new users. This is usually not my favorite way to grow a product, mostly because why wouldn't you just start another company if you're going to solve something entirely different for a different set of people? And then finally, what you can do is you can build products that solve the same problem but better. That's what I was showing you, I believe. That was our intent with the reports that we wrote. So that graph already existed. But it was just difficult for people to understand and get the takeaway. And so what we did is we built a product that was able to actually meet them where they were on their data journey, and provide them with something that answered the question better for them than if they had to interpret on their own. And then the other takeaway I hope you have is, as you build products, whether you're a third-party data provider or you're building these internally, at the company you work at, I think it's critical that we think about our end users, both in their data literacy ability and the amount of time they have to analyze data. I think the more that we can tailor our products to the needs of those people, the more likely we are to have our data used for decision making, which at the end of the day is really why we all exist. And so I think if you can better think about the thing that your end user is ultimately looking for, I think that'll help you a lot. And if you're new to that, one of the things I always encourage people to do is when you sit down with someone that's looking for a data product, don't ask them for what they want. You don't want to ask people to give you an answer. You want to figure out what their problem is. So you don't want them imagining the product. You want to come to them and say, what are some problems you have today, so that you can build the solution yourself. And then finally, we use Looker for our report writing. So a little bit of savvy data engineering, plus some of the use of Liquid, meant that we could have these highly customizable reports for our end users, which was ultimately our goal. So I'll stop there. And I think that means it's time for some Q&A, but I didn't put that little Q&A slide up there at the end.